So I have 3 transactions in SA, that is T1, T2. Sorry, I have only 2 transactions, right? Numbering gives me a number of transactions. Now it will tell which transactions, what operation. The number tells me which transaction, what operation. R tells me it is a read operation from the transaction 1. So it is R of X. After that, what is followed? This has given me, the schedule gives me the order of the operations of the respective transactions. Which operation has to execute in which order, one after the other. After transaction 1, read operation, the transaction 2 read operation should happen. Right? Next, transaction 1's write operations. Then what is that? It is transaction 1 read operation itself. Now, when you're writing in the transactions, you don't have to write 1 and 2 because you're already in the writing only in the transaction 1. And followed by W of X in the transaction 2, followed by W of Y in the transaction 1. So now we don't have anything else here. We don't have C or nothing. It has been done here. Now let me talk about SB. So SB, how many transactions I have? 2 transactions, T1 and T2. So when I have T1 and T2, now R of X, yes, immediately followed by W. Both the transaction operations are from same transaction. Then R of X from second transaction, W of X from the second transaction, followed by R of X from the first transaction. And the abort is where? Abort in the first itself. Transaction 1 is talking about the aborts. So this is how we actually present the schedules. So hope it's understood. Now we will understand how more we will understand about the schedules. What are the different scenarios we have? Let's understand those things. I have a conflict schedule. What do you mean by conflict schedule? Conflict schedule is okay, we have a conflict schedule. I think everybody have been experienced to identify the conflict serializable, right? If it is conflict schedule, then we will go for a conflict schedule. What do you mean by conflict? Let's see what is conflict. 2 operations in a schedule are said to be conflict. When? If they satisfy all these 3 options. This is the 3 options we have. 1, 2, and 3. Let's see what is these operations. The first one, they belong to a different transactions. Okay. When do you say a schedule is conflict? So let me take a schedule. Let's take the same schedule what we had in the previous session. Yeah, we will take up this schedule. So it's right. I don't know. I think, do I have a delay in my problem in the internet? I could see some delay here. Okay, let me take, there can be any number of transactions parallelly executing. Let me take an example. R of X, R of X, W of X, W of X, W of Y. This is Y. Okay. W of Y. Then I call it as a read of Y. Here. Right. No. Let me say it is read of Y. And then I will call it as a W of Y. Okay. So this is a scenario of a transactions. This is a scenario of a transaction. Now, when do you call this schedule, this yes schedule is a conflict? Now, these 3, let's see the first one. They belong to different transactions. Okay, see, who is they? It's nothing but about the 2 operations. Which are those 2 operations we will tell? We have 2 operations here. That 2 operation is nothing but they belong to different transaction. What is the 2 operations we have? Only we have read operation, right? We have read operation and we have write operation. Only these two we have. Right? Let's talk about, we are talking about these two operations. They belong to, these two operations should be belong to 2. Now, okay, before this, when do we say it is a conflict? Always when, okay, I'll just talk about the 3 scenarios. There's a 3 scenarios. So let's not, okay, this is a 3 scenarios actually. They belong to different transactions. They access the same data item X, and at least one of the operation is a write operations. So now what they're telling is there is a 3 scenarios. If 2 operations is having, 2 transactions is having continuously read and write. There is a conflict scenario is 3 cases of conflict scenario. One is read, write, write, read, write, write. Right? Right. These are 3 scenarios of conflict. What is non-conflict? Non-conflict scenarios is only when you have read operations. Okay. Why do I say conflict here? We have seen in the concurrent executions where all the concurrent problems, when it is interleaved, when did we actually found the problem? When some data has to be updated. Only when there is a changes made in the database, then only we found it was a problem, because right, somebody has updated when somebody has read and they failed it and they could not, they got a wrong informations, or they have updated at last they have read it, but update has happened later. So only the conflict every time in our concurrent, we had 4 scenarios, like lost update, dirty read, unrepeatable read. So all these 4 options, we only had a problem in write operations. When I write something, there is a problem actually. So that is what we call it as a conflict. I am reading some information, you are reading some information, availability of the seat. Whenever you keep reading, there will be no conflicts, right? Only there is a conflict when I book and it is not reflected to you, or when you book, it is not reflected to others. Is that clear? So hence, based on the previous scenarios, we have come to a conclusion saying that the conflict happens only when there is a write operation. That's an update happens. So that's why update, somebody has read and then somebody else has updated, then it has read the wrong data. Somebody has written and somebody has making the changes, it is not reflected to others. So the conflict, they have come to a conclusion, the conflict will happen only in these 3 scenarios: read, write, write, read, and write, write. So whenever I see these operations, then only we call it as a conflict. Now, consider this operations. Now we will go through the one after the other. How the operations should be there? They belong to a different transactions. If read is in one transaction, write should be in the other transaction. Is that clear? Then only the conflict. That's the first scenario, first condition. The second condition, they access the same data item. When there will be a problem, I am booking railway ticket and you are reading the movie ticket data, where there will be a conflict. Both are doing, or both are accessing a different set of data, so there will be no conflict. When both are accessing the same data and one is not updated properly with the proper data, then there is a problem, right? So hence they say it is, they access the same data item and at least one of the operation, at least one of the operation is a write item that we have already discussed. In these 3, it is one of the operation is a write. If both are read, then I call it as a non-conflict operations, right? So this I have to check. So now if I find any one of these conflict operations, one after the other, immediately, one after the other, 100% there is a conflict if it is one after the other. These scenario only we saw in that concurrent execution, problems due to concurrent executions, anomalies or problems. So now that's where I call it a conflict. Now I will say, now I have to check whether this schedule is a conflict. I have to check. So let me check. First operation followed by read of, is these two is a conflict? Okay. Now, what is my first operation? read of X followed by read of X T2. Is these two is a conflict? These two is a conflict? Even though both are accessing the same data, it is not a conflict. Why? It is only reading. Always read is not a conflict. Now, come back to the next one. Come back to the next one. What is the next operation? T2. Some problem with this. Next is read of X followed by write of X. What happens with this? Is this a conflict? Yes. One thing is it has started. What is it? That is a read-write conflict. That is a read-write conflict. So read-write conflict, read followed by write operation. Read followed by write on the same object. What is the object? X. On the same object. Now, is this a conflict? Yes. Right? Now, I use the same thing. Now, read write of X. What is the next one? Write of X. It is only immediate options I should check. Right? Immediate. Write of X followed by read of Y. Is this a conflict? Is this a conflict?
No, ma'am.
Will I get an answer? I think you can message also. Is this a conflict?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
It's not a conflict because even though it is write and read operation, they both are working on the different objects. As both are working on the different objects, this is not a conflict. Next, read of Y and followed by this and this. Read of Y followed by read of Y. Is this a conflict? It's not a conflict because both are read operation. We don't have a problem in read operations, right? Next comes read of Y followed by write of Y. So here there is a conflict because it is read and write operation happening on the same object. So all blue color is a conflict, green color combinations are not a conflict. So now I think it's clear what is conflict. So no doubt, right? Okay, next one. Okay, we just have 10 minutes time. After 10 minutes, just take 2 to 3 minutes and then we will start entering. Okay, we'll just come back fast. Next. Complete schedule. When you say it is a complete schedule, when all the transaction has their operations and at the end, it should be either written it as abort or it should be written it as commit. So that means it is complete. Nothing is written means how do you say whether the transaction is yet to have some information or not? We can guarantee. So that's what it says. Any schedule will have too many transactions. Every transaction should either end with abort or a commit. It should tell that I have ended with the transaction. Then only we call it as a complete schedule. So you can read this extra informations. Next. Next one is a recoverable schedule. Recoverability. When the schedule will be recovered. When the schedule is recovered, one where no transaction needs to be rolled back, then it is. What do you mean by recovered? So that means if my system is crashed and I want to recover my data, then which kind of an operations transactions can be recovered? Only when there is no rollback. When you will go for a rollback? When it is an abort, right? When it's an abort, you will do undo all the operations. So that means it is ulta. When it is commit, when the transaction or the schedule, whenever I'm talking schedule, it is more than one transactions. All the transactions, more than one transactions. Okay, it is not about one transaction. The complete schedule when it is recoverable, when it is all the transactions, schedule is committed, all the operations is got over and it is committed, then only I can have a recoverable schedule because I can do redo operations. I can re-execute all the operations because we will have a backup. That's a recovery operations. right? Next, cascading schedule is, it's nothing but if one has to redo the operations, the complete schedule only I can redo and undo. All this time we were actually talking about each transaction. So if I have many transaction, T4, T5, the complete schedule can be cascaded. I mean, one after the other, the transactions can be rolled back, or it can be recoverable, re-execute all the transaction. If I say redo for one transaction or one schedule, all the transaction will be redo, re-executed. So that's what we are trying to understand about the schedule here. Cascading rollback, it's nothing but one after the other. You know what is cascade? Immediately, one after the other, everything can be rolled back. All the transactions is cascaded. If one transaction is wrong in one schedule, all other transactions also gets rolled back, because there is a chances of reading the data which is updated. Correct? No, you agree with that? So T1, T2, T3, T1 and T3 is going fine, right? T1 and T3 is going fine. But if T2 is failed, so after write of X of T2, T3 has read the data. So that means T3 is dependent on T2's data, updated data. So that means T3 has read the wrong data if it is failed and it is aborted. So after T3 is updated, who is seeing T1 is writing the data? Sorry, I can say read the data and then it is writing the data. T1 is writing. If that is the case, T1 is dependent on T3. T3 is dependent on T2 data, updated data. So if T2 is aborted, T3 also should be rolled back and T1 also should be rolled back. That is what we call it as a cascaded rollback. Okay. What do you mean by strict schedule? Strict schedule is nothing but it should be committed. A schedule in which a transaction can neither read or write an item until the last transaction, then write X has committed. Once the write X is then it should be committed. We will talk about strict schedule in the next topic also. Serial schedule. This is very important for the problem. Serial schedule and serializable schedule. I think you would have come across these words. How much time we have? 5 minutes, I think. Yes, 5 minutes we have. Serial schedule. What do you mean by serial? Serial is nothing but, now if I have a schedule that is T1, T2, T3. We have understood what is this T1, T2, T3. It's nothing but this is an interleaved execution. This is an interleaved execution, right? What do you mean by serial schedule? Is all the transaction which has been participated in this schedule has to execute consecutively. What is consecutively? One after the other. That we call it as a serial schedule. T1 followed by T2. The complete operation of T1 should be executed, followed by T1 and T3. This is one order, or I will just write here itself. Or I can say T3, T2, T1, or I can say T2, T3, T1. I have many options. Any order, take the order like this. Any one order, that means what? Complete all transaction 1, then complete transaction 2, then complete transaction 3. One after the other. Executing all the transaction which is participating in that schedule, one after the other, we call it as a serial schedule. Otherwise, I call it as a non-serial schedule. So this, I call it as a non-serial schedule. Hope you all understood. What is the meaning of serial schedule? Now T1, T2, T3, if I have, according to this non-serial schedule, T1 has executed. Okay, let me say T2 has executed first. So T2 operation is R of X, write of X. Then what is executed? T3 has executed. R of X, W of X. Then after this, who has followed? T1 has followed. R of X and then W of X. So this you can see it is a serial order, one after the other. It is not interleaved here. It is one after the other. So such kind of a schedule, we call it as a serial schedule. Now let's talk about the serializable schedule. What do you mean by serializable schedule? Okay, I think serializable schedule, I need more than 2 minutes actually. We will end up here, end our session. Now it is actually 4:03. Fine, 4, 5, 4, 6. Everybody should enter once again. Is that clear? Quickly, because again, if I wait for everybody, again, my time will be wasted. Fine. Or let's come back at 4:10. You need 5 minutes break. Or shall we continue immediately?
We'll continue.
Yes, fine then. Yeah, 4, 5, yeah, 4, 6, 4, 7. See to that everybody be there. Thank you. I'll end up here.